I think we should move on now and talk about Sheldon Keefe because I mentioned that Arizona game, and I mean, come on.
My boy.
How would you? There's no better way. There's no better way to start your NHL career behind the bench with a game like that. Everyone's harping on Tyson Barrie. They need to get this guy going. He's asked. He didn't specifically ask for a trade, but it's been talked about in the media and whatnot that maybe
Yeah.
he would like one because he is in a contract here and stuff like that. Sheldon Keefe lets the boys do what the boys do. Tyson Barrie jumps up in the rush and scores with between the hash marks. And it's just like Colorado Avalanche fans have been talking to us and telling us this is what Tyson Barrie is. That's what he does best. And then I don't mean to jump ahead a little bit, but just talking about Tyson Barrie, he scored again tonight against his former team, and he scored that goal right in front of the net. So it's
Yeah.
just like if Tyson Barrie is best being a fourth forward out there, then
That's what he's got to do.
that's what you got to do. Sheldon Keefe steps in, gets that guy going right away. And I don't know about you, Andrew, that Arizona game was dominant start to finish for the Toronto
Yeah.
Maple Leafs.
Yeah, the biggest thing I noticed was the speed. The first thing I noticed was the speed. Then the second thing I noticed early on was the Leafs knew a way of not dumping the puck into a zone, and instead they were holding on to the puck. And Sheldon Keefe really likes, the team, instead of dumping it, if you have the opportunity to bring it back and then get a change, give it to your defenseman that's already changed. Like little things like that I was noticing. Of course, the defensive pairings, he was mixing it up a little bit. He started Riley and Barrie to start the game, to just give him that confidence, put him on the first power play unit. But of course, we didn't get to see a power play there. The penalty kill, there was 3 penalties the Leafs took. They killed all of them and had a shorthanded goal with a guy that he threw over the bench, Pierre Engvall, former Marley, got his first NHL goal. And like everything he was doing was working. You've seen the smirk behind the bench after the Barrie goal and the Engvall goal. Matthews got one in Arizona. Like it just seemed like a perfect night. Everybody was moving fast. The team looked really good. All the defensemen were able to pinch instead of having guys like Barrie or even Cece. Like Cody Cece is not a big bruising defensive defenseman. The guy likes to move around with the puck. Sometimes he gives it up, sometimes he doesn't. It's a hit and miss. But guess what? He got to do what he wanted. He got to go and fly around with the puck. And to be honest with you, he didn't look half bad. He held on to the puck. He did his thing. And there were some screw ups, but that's going to happen when you're a run and gun team. And I've been saying this for a long time, and I'm sure you have as well. A lot of Leaf fans take a lot of flack for this by, fans saying they need to be tough or they need to play this style of game, but they weren't built like that. And, there's been so many examples, but it's like you have a Maserati. Why are you making it like a Prius? You know what I mean? You have all these guys. And again, no disrespect to Prius. You can sponsor us one day if we get big enough. Could you imagine that? But Maserati, we just complimented you, so come on. Could you imagine, bro?
I
The
mean,
most,
I mean,
the,
I mean,
the dumbest podcast ever.
you'll never,
Just the Maserati.
you'll never get it if you don't ask. So
Yeah,
just
exactly.
gotta float it
Exactly.
out there.
Maserati. Can we have two? Anyways, um, but
But
they just played good. They looked fun, like they were having fun, and that's what I wanted to see. This brought me back. And I always use this as an example. The Leafs lost that series against the Capitals in the playoffs a few years ago, but they were having fun. They were out there playing their game. And that was a Babcock team. But then all of a sudden, he switched it up on everybody and tried them to play a new style of game, and it wasn't working. They need to play run and gun, fast paced hockey, and Sheldon Keefe is giving them the keys to do that.
But also to your point, like you're saying, a lot of people were complaining about the Maple Leafs not being physical enough, not being gritty enough. You don't have to be in along the boards to show toughness, right?
Yeah.
There's parts of sports and life in general. Half of it is being half of it is physically being there and being physical in the case of hockey, but it's also the mental side of things as well. It's how you respond to being scored on. It's how you respond after you score a goal. It's how you respond after getting hit. And I know that Mike Babcock or Kyle Dubas saying that our enforcer is our power play is really lame in the eyes
Yeah.
of a lot of people because the power play sucked for such a long time. But if that power play gets back to being what it is, I don't really mind that statement too much because it's a great way to respond, pouring it on offensively, skating hard. It's all of those things go hand in hand with playing in along the boards and throwing big hits and whatnot. It's all toughness, all into one.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people say the Leafs lack grit and stuff like that, and like they don't have guys that are willing to throw hits. But like Mikheyev the other day went and pushed Ryan Reeves in the back of the head, and I thought, oh my God, this guy's literally the dumbest guy out there. Like, why are you hitting Ryan Reeves? It's just like because guess what? It's a hockey game, and he is a little gritty. You got guys like Zach Hyman. He's not afraid to hit and get in there. Trevor Moore, Kasperi Kapanen even once in a while gets in there. Kerfoot's not afraid to throw some hits, even though his one against his former team on Eric Johnson is not exactly the best hit. But there's guys that will get in there and be a little gritty. Jake Muzzin, like they're not like a team that's just going to lay down. They've got guys that can hit. I believe they had the same amount of hits as Colorado tonight, 17 apiece or something like that. Like they're not an overly soft team either. Like they play with skill. That's their game. And if, like you said, if this power play gets going, then they don't need to fight back because guess what? Oh, buddy, check the scoreboard. We're about to score another goal. Like that's what it's about. You need to score goals to win. And people are like, oh, the Leafs are really missing Komarov and Martin. It's like, guys, no, they're not. Those guys were overpaid. They're not effective. Like those guys are not out here running the Islanders. They're not. They've been injured for most of the season. They're out there throwing hits and taking themselves out of the play. I'm not saying that hitting is always going to take you out of the play, but if you watch them play, Leo Komarov and Matt Martin in their last seasons as Leafs were out there taking themselves out of plays and putting the Leafs in bad positions. So I don't want to talk too much on the whole physicality thing, but this Leafs team is built the way that Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas want it to be built, and they're going to continue to get better. Like I really do believe that now that they're playing a fast-paced style, it's just going to get better from here.
Right, the players acquired by Kyle Dubas are finally being used as he intended to when making the trade, right? If you're not going to let Tyson Barrie be that rover, then he has no value, right? You got to let him be able to do the things that he's good with, right? It sounds really really simple when you say it like that, but believe me, the first 20 or so games in Toronto didn't make much sense. So things like
And
that
real
need to be
quick,
said.
I don't want to cut you off, but like this is literally just a message to people that thought myself and other people were ridiculous for saying that Babcock was the problem with Tyson Barrie. He was the problem.
No, literally 100%.
Like he was the problem. He was telling Tyson Barrie to reinvent himself and telling him to sit on the blue line and not do anything. It's like, guys, that's not how you coach. Like I'm not a genius. I'm not a coach in the NHL, but it does not take a goddamn NHL head coach to realize that Tyson Barrie is not supposed to sit back. He's supposed to join the rush and, like you said, be a rover, the fourth forward. Mike Babcock almost ruined Tyson Barrie. Like, I can't believe I'm literally saying that. Like, he almost ruined him.
I gave my dad the example the other day, and I said, Dad, let's just say in this wild example, you're really good at digging holes, and then all of a sudden someone one day asks you, okay, now you're no longer going to dig the holes, you're going to start filling them in. And then they come back later on and say, well, you did a really bad job filling in the hole. And then you look up to them and say, well, yeah, I'm not good at filling in the holes. I'm good at digging the holes. So why don't I
Yeah.
dig the holes? And they say, nope, you're going to fill them in. It doesn't make any sense to put someone in a position where they're going to struggle. And again, that goes, I'm not, like, maybe on the last episode of the podcast we didn't criticize Kyle Dubas enough. It goes hand in hand with the backup situation as well. Maybe Kyle Dubas hasn't acquired the best talent to play the backup position, but Mike Babcock wasn't doing him any favors by throwing them out there exclusively in the second half of a back-to-back or in the second half of a back-to-back against a division rival. I still can't believe Michael Hutchison played against Boston that one game.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's also a thing called confidence. I played goalie for like 11 or 12 years, and again, I have to remind you, I did not play in the NHL, but I did play on very good traveling teams, and I played on, some poor traveling teams. And the thing was, is like I didn't start every game because we had two goaltenders. We usually split the time, but there were times where we had to make a decision on, who was going to play what game and whatever. But regardless of that, it's like if a goalie has a really poor game, it already messes with their head. And a lot of goalies will say, "No, I don't let it get the best of me, this, that, and the other." But let me tell you right now, it does. It really does mess with you because all you can think about is, "Oh my God, that's the fourth goal they've scored on me, and it's only midway through the first period. Like something's gonna happen. Like it's gonna be 12-0 by the end of next period. Like I'm freaking out." Like goalies, you have to find a way to calm yourself. And the thing is if a coach keeps throwing you to the wolves every game and you're getting fed to top teams, it's like, what am I doing here? The coach keeps throwing me to these top teams when I know I can beat this other team, and we have Freddie Anderson who can beat these other teams. And people think, "Oh, you're ridiculous for thinking that," but people want to win. Like they know the backup goalie knows he's not as good as Freddie Anderson. That's why he's the backup. So clearly he even knows, "Hey man, I probably shouldn't be playing in this game, but I'm going to do my best to win this game." Like Hutchinson didn't really think that he was going to just sweep all these amazing teams. He was going to try because guess what? Hutchinson's an NHL goaltender, not anymore, but he was. And when you constantly throw a guy to the wolves, it messes with their mental state, and it throws them off. And I think that was the problem with Babcock throwing his goaltenders in the bad positions, and it also messed with Freddie probably because he's thinking, "Man, I want to play these teams. I'm the starting goalie. I want to play against these big teams. I want to get those 2 points." But he was being fed to these other teams. It's like, man, give the goalies the best shot to win, and it didn't happen.